Hey there everyone, this is Mystic Fish and welcome to a new series on Factorio Space Age. This is actually a little bit of a side quest from an existing series I have going. That existing series we're working on bases we can upgrade in place, and one of the things that happened was that the base on Novice, we had some builds for making quality iron plates up here, and we exhausted the resource patches. And that stalled science. And so kind of was faced with a decision here. On the one hand, I could do the standard go expand the defensive perimeter and go, grab some additional iron patches and run trains out to them and do the outposting stuff that I've done many, many times here in Factorio. Or we'll do the alternative, which is what we're going to work on in this series. So I want to do space mining. So my general idea, this base is organized so that there's a certain number of belts of resources it expects to have arrive. And so I want to make ships that each ship is responsible for one belt of resources. And so I'm going to call these Belter class ships. Sort of little head nod there to the Expanse series of books or the TV series. But the other thing that we're going to run into, and that's what I found with doing some design work on this, is that those ships are going to get fairly large. And if each ship is going to be responsible for one belt, we're going to need a lot of ships. And so if we're trying to build a lot of large ships, we're going to run into issues being able to just get enough space platform up into orbit. And so I have a further idea, which is that I want these to be self-building ships. Since one of the big attractions of doing space mining is that you don't run out of asteroids there. So once you've got it up and running, then that's an infinite source of resources for you. And so I figured, why not apply that to building the ships? So that allows us to build the ships in parallel. And the general design constraint here is that we're going to allow each ship to get one initial load of cargo here when we build it, just enough stuff to get started. And then after that, it has to sort of collect and build everything that it needs in order to upgrade itself. So I think this is going to be a fun little exercise here. Yeah, so let's get started. So we're going to do this. Let's get a ship up here. I'm going to call this Phase 0. And that's the sort of general idea here, is that we're going to have a series of blueprints. Each blueprint is a phase, and that both will allow us to sort of build a current phase and set it so that it can collect, build, upgrade whatever set of stuff that it can do in that form. But then we're going to have it tell us that it's done with that phase, and at that point we can apply the next blueprint and continue the upgrade. So it's going to be kind of a sort of an evolution process like that. Now, let's see. I don't need this. I don't need to look at myself. I need map view. Okay, we're going to then, since we've got our thing in orbit here, let's talk about this minimal set of stuff we're going to launch and how we're going to manage that. So I'm going to get a dedicated rocket silo. We're going to leave automatic requests off because we're going to put a very specific set of stuff on here. And it's going to be a mixed load rocket. So we're going to have a sort of a collection of different stuff on the rocket and fill it up that way. Now, let's see. We do need to be able to make rocket parts here in the silo. So let's summon the ingredients for that, if my clicking works. Okay, so that'll get it building the silos. I suppose it would not hurt to put a few modules in, although I don't think this silo is really going to be a bottleneck. Okay, so then let's talk about how we're going to manage this. I'm going to have requester chests so we can bring the materials in to be loaded. I'm just going to turn this inserter sideways for a minute. But then, just to make things easier to manage, I'm going to also have an active provider chest, or a trash chest as I like to call it, in case we have too much of something on the rocket and we want to take it off. We are going to then manage inventory with 2 arithmetic combinators, and then we're going to use the constant combinator here. We're going to say this is the Belter class seed payload. And so this is where we'll specify what stuff we want on the rocket. We'll use that to set requests here. So if there's something we want on the rocket, it can be summoned here to this chest. We then are going to look at the contents of the rocket, as well as what we want on the rocket. And so what we want is on the red wire. So if we do each red minus each green, that'll look at each item and compare, how much do we want versus how much do we have on the rocket. And if this quantity is positive, then we want more of something on the rocket than we currently have, and so we should load it. And so we'll specify that and so any positive signals that come out of there, we can use to set filters. And so especially if we do override stack size to 1, just to make the counting easier. Then if there's something that we need, we get a positive signal, it becomes set on the filter, and it's able to be put into the rocket. Similarly, we can also do the comparison here, but in the opposite fashion. Which is if we look at the green, which is what we have on the rocket, we have more of something on the rocket than we want to have on it, then we will likewise set filters here on this one and take it back off. And so let's just test this out. So I should be able to say I want 10 assembly machine units. It is being requested here. We're loading. We can see the filter present on the inserter, and then it stops after it gets 10. If I change my mind and say, okay, you know what, I only want 5, then the filter comes here and we unload them into the trash chest and we get back down to 5. So, okay, good. This is going to work. All right, so what do we need? Well, we're going to need, obviously, some space stuff. So we need to collect asteroids at all in order to get this thing started. And then we're going to need to crush them. Now, this is a common asteroid collector. If memory serves, and so it has 1 arm, and if memory serves, the 1 arm can collect approximately 1 chunk per second on average. And most of the crushing recipes take 2 seconds, so I think 2 crushers will eventually be able to keep up with that grabber. Or we can think of it as the grabber can maybe keep 2 crushers busy. We are also going to need at least 1 thruster to be able to move around. Anybody who has built a ship knows that a lot of times you build the ship and then you wait around in novice orbit for the asteroid chunks to drift by enough to collect enough stuff to sort of get the ship with its minimum set of resources going. And then once you start flying around, you get, tons of resources from the asteroids. And so we are going to want this to be able to fly around sort of as soon as possible, because that gives us access to a higher rate of asteroids and thus more resources. Okay, so we need that. Now, we have to think about cargo size. So if we take a look at the asteroid collector, it's got a rocket capacity of 10. Or another way of thinking of that is 1 grabber occupies 10% of a rocket. Crushers also have rocket capacity of 10. So our 2 crushers together occupy 20%. A thruster has a rocket capacity of 5. So 1 thruster by itself is 20% of a rocket. So we've got 10 plus 20 plus 20, so we should be at 50% already. If we come look at the rocket, we can see that indeed we are exactly halfway. So that's how we're going to manage. Our capacity this way. Okay, what is the minimum set of stuff to be able to build stuff in space? Well, we are going to need an electric furnace to smelt stuff. We're going to need an assembly machine. Now, there's two options here. So assembly machine 1 has a rocket capacity of 50. Assembly machine 2 also has a rocket capacity of 50. So if I'm going to put an assembly machine on, there's no sort of capacity advantage to doing an assembly machine 1. On the other hand, an assembly machine 3 has a rocket capacity of 25. So one assembly machine 3 is a 4% of the rocket payload, whereas the assembly machine 2 is only 2%. Since I think later we'll be able to make these up in space, I think we just start with the one that occupies less space on the rocket for right now. What's next? Okay, now we need a minimum set of inserters to sort of move stuff around. So I think we need 5 inserters. And initially we're going to have one grabber. We need an inserter to put asteroids into at least one crusher. Then we're going to need 2 inserters to exchange between that crusher and the hub. One for the output from the crusher, and then the other one, because that output sometimes has extra chunks, we need to be able to put the chunks back into the crusher to crush them. And then we're going to need in and out inserters for the electric furnace. So we're going to start off just smelting stuff, and then we will swap out, once we have a set of stuff, a set of smelted materials, we'll swap out for the assembly machine to build enough stuff, including additional inserters, that allow us to get both of these sort of running at the same time. But for now, we just need 5. So let's look at inserters. All inserters have a rocket capacity of 50, which means that they occupy the same amount. So to some extent, cargo-wise, 5 inserters are 5 inserters, and it doesn't matter. So I'm going to put 2 bulk inserters here. Because I think those will be useful initially for output from the crushers into the hub. And then I'm going to get, for the other 3, I'm actually going to use red inserters. They're still reasonably fast, and they're a little more flexible as far as how we can arrange things on the ship. So that's going to be our 5 inserters. We are going to then need at least some combinator logic, circuit logic, in order to control stuff that's up there. And it turns out that we can get very far with just one constant combinator and one decider combinator. And so we'll explain how that works. We're going to be using pairs of these several times over the course of subsequent designs, but initially just one is enough to control like all of this stuff, which is going to be pretty fun. Now I'm going to spend 2% of the rocket cargo on a selector combinator. We're not going to use it at first, but eventually we're going to be doing recipe switching on the assembling machines. And we're going to have to directly manage the priority of recipes. And the easiest way to do that is with a selector combinator. Selector combinators need red circuits in order to be built. We will be able to make these up in orbit eventually, but not right away, and certainly not before we're going to need to do the recipe switching. So I'm just going to... They do stack rocket capacities 50, so this is only 2%. I think this is worthwhile. Now, what else? Oh, well, we obviously are going to need some source of power, so we need at least one solar panel. These can be built in orbit, though, or additional ones can be built in orbit. And then, let's see. I do want these ships to be able to tell us when they're done. And so... ideally, we would put a speaker here, because then we could hook it up to the contents and we could get a little alarm down here when one of the ships had finished its current phase and was ready for upgrade. The problem is that speakers stack, the rocket capacity is 10, so one speaker is a whopping 10% of the rocket. And I don't know, that gives me a lot of heartburn. If we take a look, these are made very easily from materials in orbit, just metal. And so I think we're going to say the initial designs are not going to use this. But I do want some indicator that it's done that we can check. And so I think I'm actually just going to stick one light up there, which is kind of a wild thing to spend cargo on. But, you know, like I'm going to have so many of these, I need to at least consider some cargo for just my own purposes here. Okay, now we are eventually going to need to make oil products in space, which we will be able to do with coal liquefaction. So that's going to require refineries. Now refineries have a rocket capacity of 10, which means one refinery would be 10% of the rocket. On the other hand, if we look at the ingredients up at the top, we can see that we can make all of the ingredients except for stone bricks. So stone is the one thing we can't get in space for a lot of this stuff. So, but let's look at the stone bricks. So if we look at the stone bricks, these down at the bottom, they have a rocket capacity of 500. So 10 stone bricks for an ingredient to the refinery is only 2%. And so I think maybe we'll set it up so we could do 2 refineries worth of stuff. And so that would be 20 stone bricks, which would be 4% of the rocket. And that feels like a lot better. We get, you know, 2 refineries for 4% instead of a straight refinery for 10%. So that feels pretty good. So let's get 20 stone bricks in here. And then let's see where we're at for our capacity. Okay, I think this is enough stuff. I think this is enough stuff that we can build stuff in space and keep going. So then we do have 22% left. And so the question is, what is the most useful way to fill this? And so I think the most useful way to fill this, since this is going to be my only rocket worth of payload from the planet, is to put things that I really can't get in space. And so I think the best thing to do is to just stack it with electric furnaces. So we've got 22%, an electric furnace stacks to 50 on the rocket. And so I could get 11 more furnaces. We can't use them right away, but we'll eventually be able to have the ship be big enough to have enough space and power for them, and we'll be able to build beacons for them as well. So it feels like getting 11 more furnaces, bringing us up to 12. That's a nice round number. That's probably the most useful thing that we can sort of put on the ship at this point. Okay, so I think that's going to be our cargo seed. So let's go deliver this by hand up to our ship here, and let's talk up here. Now you may have noticed we didn't put any foundation on the ship, and that's because the starter pack comes with 10, and it's surrounded by 36 more. So if we delete this, we have 46 platform here, which is actually enough to get started. And because space platform can be made just with metal products, we'll be able to make any additional platform we need up here in orbit eventually. So, okay, so then we want to turn this off. This is the whole point. We are not requesting any missing construction materials here. All right, so let's lay this out. The first design here is really, let's see. 1, 2, that's the edge of the hub. 1, 2, that's the middle. Whoops, okay, that would be there. I'm holding shift to see where I could put it. So when I go here, I'm overlapping the hub by 1. Now I'm overlapping it by 2, and I want it 2 over from this, so it's sort of even with the middle. So we're gonna put 1 crusher there. As we said, we're going to use one of our bulk inserters to get stuff out. We'll use a red inserter to get extra chunks back in. We'll put our grabber up front because when we're flying, that's the place that the asteroids will come from. And then we'll put chunks, whoops, no, I didn't want that, I wanted it here. We'll put the chunks directly in from the grabber for right now. And then I mentioned we're going to start with smelting. So, where do I want this to go? I guess we can just, maybe I'll put it here. Okay, so that's where the furnace is going to be. We need then, I think, in and out, and that's all our inserters. What else? Now I think we need our control system. So that is going to look like a constant combinator, a decider combinator, and then our light to tell us when we're done. So I'm not going to put power in until we've got this thing configured, but we would need 9 more. We need a solar panel plus 9 foundation in order to get power in here, which we have 16. So so we will be able to power this up. Okay, so I did a little bit of homework, and I think what we want to do is we want this thing to run until it has 200 iron plates, 400 copper plates, and 400 steel plates, which I think we can do the circuit logic to make this all work. So, so let's get started on that. So here on the constant combinator, what we want are all of the control signals we need to send some element on the ship. And so one of those is going to be asteroid chunks. So we need to tell, in this case, we'll set filter on the grabber, and we'll tell it we're ready for asteroid chunks. That will activate its filters, and it will grab asteroid chunks until this signal goes away. We need to set the recipes for the crusher. And so it's either going to just do the one that generates iron, or it's going to be the one that does iron and copper. Then we need to figure out what we want to smelt. And so for this, let's see, and these all have to have different numbers, which I will explain why when we get to the decider combinator. We may also have to tell the input inserter here, we're going to set filters on this guy to say, what do we want to smelt? And so we may need it to smelt iron ore or copper ore or steel plates or iron plates, if we're making steel. And I think those are all the control signals. I'm going to add one more signal for our light, which is we're going to have a green signal when we're done collecting everything, all of our initial smelting materials. Okay, so how does this now work? What we do is we take the contents of the hub comes in on the green wire, and then this control wire comes in on the red wire. And the point of this combinator is we're going to pass through the red signals that we want to be active. And we're going to base that on the basis of what stuff do we currently have. And so here's the way that that works and the way we can do all of these signals together. The key thing is to use this each on the red wire. So that will look at each of these signals. Now, the reason they all need different numbers is that means that we can have different conditions for the different signals. So in particular, if I say one of the conditions being if the red signal is 1, which by the way is only true for this one, So it's for metallic asteroid chunks. That's the only time the red signal will be 1. I should actually set it to 1. And so then we can now provide conditions for which we then over here pass through the signal. And so the idea is that if this set of conditions is true, which can only, in this sort of clause of the decider combinator, is only true for metallic asteroid chunks, then we'll get an asteroid chunk out here on the other side. Okay, so when do we need asteroid chunks? Well, that is going to be when we need ore, right? Either iron or copper ore. So, so the first thing we want to look at is, do we need iron ore? And I'm going to say that we need, we're going to take a look. This recipe produces 20 iron ore, so if we only activate this when we have less than 30, that'll sort of keep sort of the stocks in here at a reasonable size. However, there's no need for more iron ore if we have enough iron plates, which we said we want 200 of. So this would be the reason to ask for a chunk for iron. And so it's only if we're out of iron ore and we haven't actually finished making as much iron plate as we want. Now we also have to cover the case for copper ore. And so we put an ore here. We can still look for the red signal being 1 because we can still talk about metallic asteroid chunks. But in this case, it is that I don't have enough copper ore. And here, I'm going to call this 46. Sure. This recipe produces 4 at a shot, so that's 4 under the stack size of 50. And we don't have enough copper plates. So that would be the reason to go get more chunks for the purposes of copper ore. So once we've satisfied our copper plates, then this clause will not be active anymore. This clause is going to be active and not active as we smelt plates, but also when we may get to 200 iron plates, but then we'll sort of lose them as we turn them into steel eventually. So that one's going to turn on and off for us. Okay, so let's now proceed to look at the next set of stuff. So we need to have the crusher recipes. And I'm going to do these side by side because I think the idea is we want one of these recipes always to be active. So that when we get a chunk in, then we know which recipe we want. So I think because we get so much, and so I think these are going to be opposites to some degree. So I think well, let's see, and these both need to be red signals. But now let's take a look. So I think we only want the advanced one. Well, if we don't have enough copper plates already, this is like, that's sort of a prerequisite. If we have enough copper plates, we should never use this recipe, I think. And then, assuming that we don't have that, we figured out if we're going to crush something up here. So the big question is just, am I crushing into just iron or into iron and copper? And so I think let's just say if I have less copper than iron, and I need some copper, then I may as well, and I have less copper than iron, which I think will almost always be the case, then we should do the advanced one. And so that means that the only iron one, that should only be true if we have enough copper plates. If we have enough copper plates, then I should definitely put that one in. And I think I need to also, just to correctly provide the opposite, the negation of this one, I think I also want here, if for some reason we have less iron than copper, and these need to be greens, then that's another reason to, we know that we've needed a chunk because we calculated that up here for whether we're putting a chunk in. And then otherwise it's, let's see, no, I also need, okay, so in order to negate this, I also need to check that that negates this one, and do I care about the other one? I think I don't care about the other one. Okay, I think that takes care of the, right, the negation of A and B is not A or not B. So that's what we got there. Okay, so good. I think that covers recipes. Okay, so then smelting wise, when do we want to put iron ore in? And that is simply, we want to be willing to smelt iron plates. If we don't have enough, we want to be able to smelt into copper plates if we don't have enough copper plates. And then we want to be able to smelt into steel and insert iron plates. Right, so just a reminder that this is the iron plate signal. So we're going to send iron plates if we don't have enough steel. And we have some, we do have iron plates. We need to have at least 5 iron plates, right? In order to start smelting. What am I doing? That. I need to have at least 5 iron plates before I start putting any in. Okay, and then finally, our victory condition here is going to be that if the red signal is 7, that is going to be true if we have enough of everything. So we have enough iron plates, and we have enough copper plates, and we have enough steel plates. Okay, now let's talk connections. Okay, we know this is going to set filters to say when we need a chunk. We know this is going to set recipe. This is going to tell us when we're done. So if we get a green signal, it should turn green. I don't know if I need to check this. We'll have to see when we come back. And then we also need... this is going to, I'm going to give this a stack size of 1, and I'm going to have it set filters. Now there's one more thing we have to do. So if we had, one of the things to note is that both of these recipes, this produces 20 iron ore, this one produces 10 iron ore. So those are both multiples of 5. So as long as we smelt all of our iron ore, we will end up with, or let's see, we'll end up with a multiple of 5 iron plates, which is good because we want multiples of 5 if we're making steel. The thing that we have to watch out for is like getting 2 iron plates in here and not having any more in the hub, and so then it just gets stuck, right? It's like it's trying to make steel, but it has no way to get more iron plates in. Even if we had iron ore here, it would be stuck. So we want to try to avoid that. And I think the way that we do that is as follows, which is we're going to read contents. So that'll tell us what's either in here or in here. And then we will also, let's see, actually I don't want that with the green one because that would leak into the rest of this green network. And so that means that whatever I'm currently smelting will also be set on the filter. So as soon as I start smelting something, I'm going to smelt as much of it as I can. So the idea is once I have iron ore in here, for example, this should be willing to smelt either copper or iron. As soon as I'm smelting iron ore, I'm going to smelt all of the iron ore until I have at least 200, because at that point, I'll stop getting chunks. Right? Once I have enough accumulated iron plates, I'll stop asking for chunks for the iron ore. And so I think that'll let us switch properly between iron plates and steel plates. I think that's the idea. So okay, I think that's it. Let's power this guy up. Where do I want to stick this? How about here? All right, let's see. So okay, filters coming in. We do in fact are getting the iron and copper ore, which is correct. We shouldn't get iron plates because we don't have any iron plates. And so we don't have enough for a steel recipe. It's just going to ignore this because it's not something you can stick into a furnace. We are doing the basic one because we don't have any. We're in this clause here, right? We have less than or equal to iron ore to copper ore, and then we're asking for a chunk. And so the total things that are coming through are what we expect, I think. So now we just have to wait for metallic chunks to drive by, and then we can see them. And so this is, as I was saying, this is the main reason to eventually get to flight is not wanting to wait for asteroids to drift into the path. Well, we got one there, so that's good. Now, you can see electricity down there, lower right, is hurting. So now we have less copper than iron, and so we switched to the other recipe. And so this guy is going to smelt all of the iron that it got, I think. And so now we're going to start collecting copper and iron. You can see we're low on power, so I was trying to show down here on the lower right, and we're in the red on electricity as long as we're crushing stuff. Same is true for the furnace and the asteroid collector. I think once we have enough ore collected and this guy stops, it should mean this guy also stops, and so most of the electricity will be able to come here to the smelting. As you can see, when these are not active, this one it's almost fully powered, so that's not too bad. Okay, so we're gonna smelt here, I think, until we run out of iron, although we're about to get some more iron ore. But that's okay. I should mention, just for those of you who maybe were not following the original series, I do have a lot of I have a lot of steel productivity researched, and I also have a lot of asteroid productivity researched. So we actually we're gonna make pretty fast progress here, I think. So what is interesting to do here? I think how long is this going to take? I think this is not going to be too bad. I think let's hang around and talk for a little bit, because I think what we will see is that we'll proceed in this fashion. Let's try to predict what happens. I think we're going to proceed in this fashion until we've got at least 46 copper ore. And then I think we switch to the regular recipe. And then I think we smelt. And then we'll stop asking for chunks. Because we'll have, at least 30, we'll have plenty of iron ore for a while. And then we'll smelt down until we're under 30 iron ore. And then we'll get some more chunks. We'll use the basic recipe to top up the iron ore. And that will just continue. So this guy is just going to make iron plates until we get at least 200. And then at that point, I guess it'll be hard to figure out. We can see that we're eligible for iron plates here. We have at least 5. But I think then it's up to chance whether we start smelting steel or copper at that point. Okay, so I think when this guy comes out, we'll be over our allotment of copper, and we turned off the chunk collection, so that's good. So we just gotta finish any recycled extra chunks here, which we just did. Okay, so this guy stopped, this guy stopped. We have enough copper ore, and now we're going to smelt this down until we've got under 30. So this is going a lot faster, although you can see that the bulk inserters take a pretty good chunk of the electricity, which is funny. You don't usually think about the electricity draw of inserters. But that's okay. It's just loading and unloading, so it is able to... You can see it sort of be slow right at the beginning as it gets more stuff, and then it speeds up. Okay, do I want to see this switch over? It's going to be like another minute or so. I guess so. I guess I can talk for a minute. Okay, so what from here? And so the reason that we're collecting our 200 iron plates, 400 copper plates, and 400 steel plates. Most of the copper and steel is going to go to extra foundation. But the intent is that we're going to take this assembly machine here, and we're going to put it right here. And then we will use the smelted materials. We'll have to change the configuration of this thing and produce the remaining stuff that we need in order to get all of the... We're going to build a bunch more combinators, more inserters, and more platform. And then at that point, we'll be able to have both smelting and assembling going at the same time, as well as the full sort of circuit control I have in mind for the ships. So we're going to get all of the circuit stuff, or at least a lot of the circuit stuff, going up front. And then it's mostly from that point going to be producing enough space platform, solar panels and stuff to we're going to need to get more of these furnaces going. We're going to need to get more assembly machines, etc. And then at some point we're going to need to actually get flying, because we're going to have to see what the bottleneck is at each point. How are we doing here? Okay, we're up to 105. I guess, all right, so, but more importantly, the iron ore is down to 40. So I think when this gets under 30, we're going to request chunks again. Almost there. And so part of the trick here is not getting overrun with ore. It turns out, it took me a little bit of figuring out how to make this work in such a way that I could still control it just with these two things, and we didn't overrun the capacity of the hub with ore. And I think this will do it. So now, okay, we're asking for chunks again. We're going to do the regular recipe. So probably one chunk like takes us over what we need, but then it'll stop relatively quickly. We might get 2 because we've got the productivity bonus in this guy, plus we might get, you know, some recycle asteroids as well. Ooh, such a slow arm. And so the question is, will this come out? Oh, it did, totally came out before. Okay, so that got us 20. Actually, this might not take too long. We might get over the 200 iron plates before too long. So maybe we'll just watch that happen and make sure that the furnace switches recipe properly. Okay, cool. I think we got a productivity bonus there. All right, so we're gonna get a bunch of extra iron ore. That turns the chunks off here. Okay, good. And so, okay, well, we got about 50 more iron plates, and then we should switch recipes. So, I don't know, this is gonna be, I think, fun. It's a fun challenge to try to figure out how to get a minimum set of stuff up here to like actually do production, and then we're gonna do a minimum set of stuff to fly safely back and forth to Vulcanus. I think that's where I want to go for 2 reasons. One, you know, much of the I don't want to go deal with rockets by flying to Aquilo or further with these ships. Number one, it's not necessary. All of the resources are available here in the inner solar system, but also that would require rocket launchers and or insane levels of damage research. And so, you know, that requires carbon fiber and stuff like that. And so we can only get that from, you know, Gleba stuff. So it's not going to fit within our design constraint of 1 rocket load. So we're going to stick to the inner planets. I think that's okay. The nice thing about the Vulcanus route is much of what we're going to need to acquire are metallic asteroids, because, you know, much of the resources when we're expanding the ship are actually going to go to building foundation and space platform. But then also the solar panels work better at Vulcanus, and so we can use solar panels plus accumulators as it flies back and forth between Novus and Vulcanus to do a better job of managing power. Okay, so we're almost at 200 iron plates, and so we should see this now switch over, I think. So now we're at 200. I think that means we are not sending the iron ore here. And this iron ore signal is actually coming because we're reading these contents here. So this is going to finish now smelting the 100 iron that we got here. We're not going to request more chunks because we're over 200 plates. So even if the iron ore gets under 30, we won't request chunks because we have enough iron plates. And so that will actually allow us to drain the iron ore completely. And that will mean that once we finish smelting what's in there, that we can finally drop the iron ore off of here, and then we can start smelting something else. Well, now it looks like I need to entertain you for you know, a little over a minute again. Okay, so what are the things that I guess let's plan ahead a little bit. So, you know, flying around, we're gonna need obviously to manufacture ammo and fuel. That's sort of those are the main things. We'll have to watch power in order to keep up with the smelting and stuff. Right now, we're limited by smelting, so there's no need to fly yet, because production is limited by how many furnaces we have. And, well, I guess even the one furnace we have is limited by power. So sort of there's this idea of the theory of constraints, that the sort of fastest way to sort of scale things up is to find the thing that's currently limiting you, your current bottleneck, and then fix that. So one of the first things that once we're able to sort of get general functionality of smelting plus assembly going on this thing, then we're going to need to look at looking at power, and then we're just going to have to check. Sometimes it's going to be the bottleneck is going to be how many assembly machines do we have. Sometimes it's going to be how many furnaces do we have, how much power we have, how many crushers we have. Eventually, we're going to find that the bottleneck is how fast we can grab asteroids, and that's the point at which we need to start flying. So we'll see what we get there. Eventually, once we have the capability to do flight and we have sort of like full smelting and assembly going, which I think there's no reason not to just, like, we've brought a bunch of, we'll be able to make as many assembly machine 2s as we want up here in orbit. But really, until we've got all of the furnaces we brought with us, I'm not sure there's a need to do anything more exotic like oil products. But eventually we will need oil products, because the thing that will be limited by, and actually it may not, this may happen before we get to furnaces. Eventually, even if we're flying, we're going to be limited by how many crushers we have. So we'll be able to fly fast enough this can grab as many chunks as it wants, and we'll be limited by how fast we can crush things. At that point, we'll need to fly faster, we'll need to have more crushers, and so that's the point, I think, where you can see we need low density structures, so those require plastic, and electric engines require lubricant. So if we need to add crushers, we need oil processing. If we need to collect more asteroids, those take processing units. Again, sulfuric acid, the plastic for the red chips that go into them, right? These all require oil products. So if at some point the bottleneck becomes space stuff, then we need to get oil processing going in space. So, but again, that's a little ways away here, I think. We can see that we have successfully switched over to smelting steel. Now, we have 80 in here and 10 in here, so we're still at multiple of 10. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we expected. So what do we expect from here? I think what happens from here is that when we'll get enough steel for the iron plates to fall under 200, and then we'll grab more iron ore, but we won't be able to until we have at least 30, so that'll be 2 recipes. And so but we won't start smelting the iron ore because of this, again, this filter guy. So we're gonna end up smelting all of these iron plates into steel. And then I think the cycle resets. We'll then have iron ore and copper ore present. I think it's just a matter of, which one of the two of these do we end up getting. Now, one thing that we do have to think about is, and I'm kind of thinking we want to prioritize. I'm thinking we want to prioritize smelting copper ore, actually, because we get iron ore with it, and I'm worried if we go through the iron cycles first and only start smelting copper at the end, that we're going to get overrun with iron ore. So I actually think we need to fix this. So where's our iron ore? That's signal 4 is the iron ore. So let me think carefully about this. I think it's okay to put one extra clause in here. this guy. So we only want to put iron ore in. I think we only want to put this in if we don't have enough copper plates, because I think that lets us prioritize the copper, because in order to get the copper ore, we're going to get a bunch of iron ore. So how much iron ore are we going to get? In order to get 400, we need 400 copper ore, which means that we're going to do 100 crafts of this, which is going to give us 1,000. Iron ore. Which is 20 stacks. So do we have enough room for 20 stacks of iron? I guess we do. So I think I want to do that. I think we've seen that this is going to keep I think we've seen that the steel and iron ore can manage itself. And maybe we just do, I mean, the other thing that we could do is we could, well, I don't have another inserter, but eventually we are going to have a trash inserter that chucks things overboard if we have too many of them. I think this is going to be okay. Like, I think this will not get overrun with iron. I am curious about that, but I think we'll be okay. So I think from here out, it's going to be just waiting for this to go. So we're not going to do that on camera. We're just going to, I'm going to come back if we run into a problem, or if this is done. So stay tuned and we'll see what happens. For those of you who may have gotten anxious because you saw the mistake, yes, we actually want to only put iron ore if we have, I did not do that right here, for if we actually have enough copper plates. So that will prioritize the smelting the copper. So I had this previously at less than, which is not right, but I do want it to be greater than instead. And so now you can see the iron ore is off of here. So once we finished, we're actually almost done draining. So it's good that I caught that. We should start smelting the copper next, which I guess we'll see shortly, right? As soon as we use up the iron plates that are waiting here. I think as soon as this starts crafting, then we'll see the iron plates come off the filter. Yes, so the next thing in here is copper. So that's, I think, correct. Okay, good. So the priorities are gonna, we fixed the priorities there. Okay, good. Smelting copper, off and running. Okay, so we'll be back. Okay, just a quick progress check-in. So once we did hit over 400 copper plates, we stopped asking for more chunks for copper ore, and so we're about to drain the copper ore out and finish smelting what's in there, and then we should switch back over. As I think we worked out, we did end up with 1,000 iron ore here, and I think one of the things that I'm worried about, just sort of future-proofing, is that in the future, we won't be able to turn as much. Let's see, it'll take fewer iron plates to make the required number of steel plates. But I think this is actually okay, because we had room for this. I think we worked out there's 1,000. There's still extra room for ore here, so I think it's okay, even if not. I think what that just means is we end up with extra iron plates at the end once we've smelted all 1,000 iron ore. So I think this is going to be okay. So we're going to let this keep running. I think what we're doing next is turning all of that iron ore into iron plates, and then finally some number of those into steel plates. And then I think it's done. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we are back, and we have gotten to a quiescent state. As you can see, we've got the green light. It does appear that I have to turn that on so that we can see it. So that's good. Now, it occurs to me, one of the things that occurs to me is that this is not quite future-proof, because it's possible at some future level of insane steel productivity. I do think the process of producing the 400 copper plates, that's only going to produce 1,000 iron ore. So that's fine. That'll all get turned into iron plates. The problem is that the process of burning down all those iron plates may produce actually too much steel. So I actually think we don't send the lamp, and we send one extra inserter here. And maybe we'll just stick it down here. We'll take this one off. Because I think what we can do is we can use a red wire to send that back here. So send to platform, and what we can do is we can make this be a circuit condition where we're looking for the green signal to be true. I guess we make this automatic, and then we can see that it is, that at least turns green. If we have to come back and look at this anyway, I think that's what we want. And then we can just hook this guy up here, and we can say, you are going to dump just any extra steel out. And is this, where do I want to put this? I think I need to put this, somewhere where it can get sort of overwritten by something, so that we can get rid of it and put it in the place, in sort of a better place at some point. So I think we'll put it there. And I think this gets enabled, disabled if we end up with like more than 1,000 steel. I think that appropriately future-proofs us. It does mean we have to click in here and see if we're finished, or at least look at the contents. I did look back at my notes, and I did realize that we actually need 450 steel, so I've made that update as well. But you can see we ended up with like extra of everything. So I think that's okay. But fortunately, we did set this up so that we could change this. So I think instead of the lamp, I think we do 3 bulk inserters. It gives us a good option to get an extra bulk inserter in there. That's already been brought. Okay. So I think that's it. I think we're going to take some blueprints here. And so we're going to need, is this one I want? This is not right, because this is from a prior attempt at working on this stuff. But I will put this stuff in here. We will call these Belter class ships. And I guess we'll give it a belt and a thruster. Okay, good. Back to here. I think we then can put a copy of it there. Okay, then we're going to take a blueprint of this. And this is going to be Belter class C payload. I guess we'll do something like the rocket silo and maybe a 0, something like that. Create that blueprint, stick it there. And then we need to take a blueprint of this thing, which I guess I don't know how many phases we're going to have, so maybe we need 2 digits. But then I can take this blueprint here, get rid of that. And this is going to be belter class phase 0, 0. And so that is going to look like this. Give it some icons here. And a 0, 0. Goals for this phase. At least 200 iron plates. At least 400 copper plates. At least 450 steel plates. Okay. So that's what we want there. And that also goes in here. Okay, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete this guy. And we're going to do it again and apply the blueprint. I'll do that all off camera. So belter class phase 0, 0. We're going to create that. We'll stamp our blueprint down to check it, and that will be it. So I think that's going to be it for this episode. When we come back next episode, we'll work on taking our smelted materials and turning them into the remainder of the stuff we need to sort of kickstart ongoing automated production. But that will be a problem for future Mystic Fish. So we'll see you next time. So as always, thanks for watching. We will see you next time. And until then, bye.